I don't know. I think there's a good thing in moving to a lot of places, and the good thing is that you don't just assume a bunch of predetermined opinions, or you don't accept a bunch of people's opinions. You have to form your own.
Yeah.
You have to kind of like establish your own ideas about things, because you can't just accept, all the ideas of your friends. You know, it's like, if you grow up in a certain neighborhood, there's like a predetermined pattern of behavior that everybody in the neighborhood has. You know, and that's why accents exist, and that's why, certain sayings and things exist.
Yeah.
Where certain parts of the world or country will use them. But when you move around all the time, it's like you got to kind of like look at the world for yourself. You're forced to be more objective. You're forced to form your own view of things, because you're in a new place, and now everybody thinks totally differently. So now you have to go, well, which way is it? Is it the way from the last place I lived, or is it this way? And you kind of get a sense of like, wow, people think completely differently everywhere. When I was like 11, when we moved to Florida, we moved from San Francisco, which is like really liberal, sort of open-minded town, kind of, fairly intelligent town, very smart town.
There was a lot of nice people there. I remember the first time I went there, we were on a road trip. I was like 18, and we get on a bus, and this like 43-year-old black dude starts like talking to us and stuff. And in New Jersey, you'd be like, okay, put my guard up a little bit.
Right.
We end up going back to his friggin' apartment. He like comes out with a big bag of weed, hooks us up with like a half ounce, like real cheap, buys us beer and stuff. And we walked out of there, and we're all like, dude, this would never happen. We would have got stabbed if we were in New Jersey. Like,
that's ridiculous. That's funny.
Yeah, so it was like
you guys could have got raped. But you got lucky, son. San Francisco's not all nice.
Yeah.
But I moved from San Francisco to Florida, and I had a friend from school, and I was over his house, and his dad was super fucking mad. He had the papers. I don't believe this shit. And we were like, what's going on? It's like, these fucking fags want to marry each other. They're trying to pass a law so fags can get married. I'm like, this is the guy's dad. And I was like, and I was 11. I was like, how dumb are you? Like, you give a shit whether gay people get married?
Yeah, what
like,
difference does it make in your life?
It didn't make any sense. But to him, it was like a serious issue. He was very upset. And, he was motivated. He was fucking pissed off. He threw the newspaper down. He was really angry. And I was like, wow. And it really, like, sunk into my head, like, how different Florida is, Gainesville, Florida, than, San Francisco. I was like, wow, people are dumb as fuck here. Like, this is crazy. Like, this guy really thinks like that. Whereas when I lived in San Francisco, my next door neighbors were gay. And my aunt would come over, and, she would hang out. They would hang out with the gay guys. They would be all naked, playing the bongo drums, smoking weed. Like, these gay guys were just these weird dudes that lived next door and dated other dudes. Like, there was never, like, a problem. No one ever hated them. I didn't even know what the word faggot meant. Literally, I didn't even know that, like, people called gays fags. Like, when I was a little kid, someone was being a faggot, it was like, you fucking fag. It's like, why don't you want to come to the movies, fag? It's like, why are you being a pussy? Why are you being a wimp? And then when I went to Florida and someone was saying faggot, like, I didn't know that was like a derogatory term to gay people. I didn't know what nigger meant. I didn't know what nigger meant until I was 11 years old.
Wow. Literally.
Because when I lived in New York, and New Jersey rather, when I was in New Jersey, I was too young. I'd never heard it. And when I moved to San Francisco, nobody ever said it. Like, literally, I never heard anybody in my school or anywhere call a black person a nigger. But then when I moved to Florida, and I heard these fucking niggers, they're coming over here, and then I had to ask my mom. I was like, what is a nigger? Yeah. And my mom was like, stop playing stupid. And I'm like, I'm asking you what a nigger is. What's a nigger? She's like, a nigger is a word for black people. I was like, wow, really? Like, that's mind-blowing to me that I didn't hear about that until I was 11. Yeah. But it really is because San Francisco is just so much more socially conscious place than Florida. So I think moving around like that, it's bad, but it's good. It would be bad if I started out in Gainesville, Florida, and I started out around a bunch of knuckleheads, or any other area where there's a bunch of knuckleheads, and then you sort of accept that way of thinking.
Yeah, that's like your default kind of,
Yeah.
Shitting on Gainesville.
When you move and, you go to these different places, it does force you to form your own opinions. It does force you.
And it's mind-blowing that people get so heated about, people's own, like, life choices or perspective. Like, I guess the only way I would get mad at someone is if they're a rapist or a murderer. That's like their thinking is like murdering school and raping.
People get mad at you if you use Macs. They get mad at you if you use Apple over Windows, They get mad at you...
Vice versa,
for driving a Chevy. You fucking pussy, you don't even drive a Ford. Like, people are nuts, man. there are two teams, and those two teams exist that's like a paradigm that exists like throughout all human culture, or especially American culture. It's like you're either a Republican or a Democrat, or if you're a fucking weirdo, you're a libertarian. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You either like Fords or you like Chevy, or if you're a fucking weirdo, you like Mopars. It's like that's how people are. You like Mac or you like PC, or if you're a fucking weirdo, you like Linux. Like there really is even though there's all these other options, we tend to gravitate towards these very specific groups, and we pit them against each other. It's very strange.
No, it actually really is strange, because if you think about it, like the best solution most likely is a combination of the two.
I like certain things about Mac.
That's why I really don't.
Dells. I have a Dell. So
But that's why I don't like bipartisan politics so much because
I agree with a lot of things Republicans agree with. But I also agree with, the gun control issue. When people start raging about gun control, it should be tough to get guns, but you should be allowed to have a gun if you're a fucking
sane
rational citizen, and you pay your taxes and you're not a bad person. You should be allowed to have a gun for a bunch of reasons: for home protection, for hunting, for just going to the range and shooting if you so choose to.
It's a good way to vent, man. Every time I go shooting, I feel great. I'm like, wow, that was fun. It's the challenge of hitting a target. It's fun. It's nothing violent about it.
Right.
Just like violent video games. It's not like a violent impulse. It's kind of like it's like hand-eye coordination.
Not only that, you really need to teach kids about guns, because it's the times when you've got these kids who have no idea what or how a gun works,
Right.
And then they go and they find a gun and they're like, oh, and they shoot
their friends, accidentally. Yeah, those are horrible tragedies. Whereas that doesn't usually happen with kids who grow up hunting and stuff like that.
It doesn't, seriously. I'm from a house like that.
My was a gunsmith, so when I was a little kid, I got the gun talk multiple times before I ever touched a gun.
That's good.
Yeah, and
no, that's awesome, man. It's my friend Todd Hollingshead from id Software. Those are the guys who make Quake and Doom and all those guys. I don't know if he's right, but he told me that there's been since violent video games have been around, there's been a drastic decrease in youth violence. And that statistically, less people are involved in violence today than before the advent of violent video games. So the argument that violent video games promote violence in real life is not right.
Well, there is.
I don't know if that's true though.
Yeah, that's something. I bet. How are we doing with battery and stuff?
Pretty good. Doesn't say any better.
No battery thing. Okay, cool. The Army now is using video games to recruit kids. And then I saw this documentary on that, and
crazy.
It's nuts, because they're like, it's funny. There's this place I think in the Mall of America. It's like the Army Experience, and you go in there and you play Call of Duty and shit. And they come and there's Army recruiters dressed up as employees of the store. It's like a store. It's not an army. That's not necessarily an Army place. And you go and they walk around and they feed your head with oh yeah, Army. I was an Army once, and they're ex Army men and stuff like that. And but they were interviewing the kids, and they were saying does this? It's no, I don't have violent impulses from playing. It's just fun. I don't know, it's just fun. I just enjoy doing it. It's a thing. I don't want to go out and kill people, if that's what you're asking me. And it's I think
they should wheel in Afghanistan veterans with no legs.
Yeah.
Wheel in dudes who've had their face blown off. Wheel in dudes who are missing half their head and they can still talk, sorta.
Well, I
wheel
wonder
in those guys. You wanna fucking show people what Army's real like. It's not like a video game.
Not at all. Yeah. That's the thing. I wonder how effective those, because they didn't talk about that in the documentary. I feel like that's where it missed a really good opportunity.
How effective
these recruiters were. Yeah, because
those commercials are badass, man. They do a great job with those commercials. Those Marine commercials, where they're
fighting dragons.
Yeah, they're fighting dragons and swinging swords.
They whip out the cool exactly.
Yeah, and climbing over fucking obstacle courses, and they look like badasses, and they're flipping each other on the dirt. It looks exciting.